2 weeks ago, the Civil War started, with shots being fired on Fort Sumter. President Abraham Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus, and Thomas Jackson was placed in command of the lower Shenandoah Valley and the city of Harpers Ferry. Northern men began to answer Lincoln's call for 75,000 volunteers to serve for 90 days. Mass confusion and war fervor hung in the air as men rushed to fill quotas and politicians maneuvered to receive commissions. Regimental commanders were only eligible for appointment with the successful enlistment of 1,000 officers and soldiers within the unit. In the South, war fervor was just as extreme. Units were mustered initially as social activities. As soon as states began to secede from the Union, the fervor was seen by men, but many times just as extremely felt by women. A woman in Alabama is known to have sent her reluctant boyfriend a pair of her pantaloons and a dress with the message, "Wear these or enlist." He enlisted. On Monday, April 29th, in Annapolis, Maryland, the House of Delegates voted 53-13 against secession, allowing the Union government to remain in Washington, D.C. President Jefferson Davis also addressed a session of the Confederate Congress, blaming Abraham Lincoln for starting the war and declaring that all we ask is to be let alone. On the 30th, Colonel Thomas J. Jackson arrived in Harpers Ferry. Major Robert Anderson, hero of Sumter, was promoted to Brigadier General and sent to Kentucky to help keep his native state in the Union. Kentucky claimed neutrality and prevented the general from entering, forcing him to establish his headquarters across the Ohio River in Cincinnati. Beginning in the month of May, Thomas Jackson was ordered to remove the weapons-making machinery from the arsenal in Harpers Ferry and ship it to Winchester and Strasburg. This machinery would later be removed to Richmond and finally to Fayetteville, North Carolina. Union ships blockaded the James River and the Hampton Roads access to the Naval Yard at Norfolk. The Union ship, the USS Hatteras, commanded by George F. Emmons, captured the Confederate schooner Magnolia, which was loaded with cargo of cotton. Troops continued to pour into Washington, easing Lincoln's anxiety regarding the defense of the Union capital. On the 2nd of May, the aged General Winfield Scott, veteran of the War of 1812 and the Mexican-American War, presented the strategy known as the Anaconda Plan to establish a blockade of the southern seaports and split the South by capturing the Mississippi River. On the 3rd, Lincoln increased his call for volunteers by calling for an additional 42,000 men to serve for 3 years. Lincoln also expanded the regular army to nearly 23,000 men and authorized the enlistment of naval personnel to 18,000. The Department of the Ohio was formed on this day, and a 34-year-old general named George McClellan was placed in command. In Kentucky, 14 companies offered their services to the Confederacy. These companies went to camp in the southern part of the state for training. Governor Claiborne Jackson of Missouri declared the state to be for the South. On the 4th of May, in Northwest Virginia, pro-Union groups gathered to discuss the possibility of seceding from Virginia. In Missouri, the U.S. ordnance stores in Kansas City were seized by the pro-Southern government. At Gretna, Louisiana, the first guns for the Confederate Navy were cast at the Phoenix Iron Works. The famous Star of the West from Sumter was captured and used as a receiving ship in New Orleans. Major General Benjamin Butler secured the B&O Railroad between Washington, Baltimore, and Annapolis on the 5th. On Monday the 6th, Tennessee and Arkansas passed secession ordinances and left the Union, becoming the 9th and 10th states to join the Confederacy. On this day, President Jefferson Davis signed a bill, passed by the Confederate Congress on the 3rd of May, declaring a state of war existing between the Confederate States of America and the United States of America. In London, the British recognized the Confederacy as a belligerent, not a separate nation. Also on this day, Union Captain Nathaniel Lyon scouts the Confederate camp in Missouri by dressing up as a farm woman, complete with dress and veil to hide his red hair and beard. A riot broke out on the 7th between pro-Union and secessionist factions in Knoxville, Tennessee. One man was mortally wounded. Eastern Tennessee will remain strongly with the Union for the duration of the war. The USS Yankee was fired on by Confederate batteries at Gloucester Point in Virginia, just north of Yorktown. On the 8th, The Richmond Examiner newspaper agreed not to publish information on Confederate military movements. The problem of leaking military information was a serious threat throughout the war. At one point, a New York paper published a diagram of all the fortifications surrounding Washington, D.C. On the 9th, Lincoln attended a concert by the 71st New York Regimental Band in Camden, D.C., and afterwards observed Dahlgren's new 11-inch smoothbore gun being fired. The Confederate Congress authorized the President to accept into volunteer service any forces deemed necessary for the duration of the war. Initially, Southern units accepted enlistments for 1 year. This quickly changed to the duration of the war. Also on the 9th, Great Britain, wishing to avoid the conflict broiling in her former colony, declares itself neutral. The U.S. Naval Academy arrived at its new home in Newport, Rhode Island, along with Old Ironsides, the USS Constitution. And there you have it, another 2 weeks of war under our belts with no major engagements. Each side began the war woefully unprepared, and we will see soon enough much more preparation would be needed. But that waits until next time. Thanks for watching.